What if Qui-Gon killed Darth Maul in their first duel in the Phantom Menace while they were on Tatooine? That's our story for today. Hope you guys enjoy, and let's get right into it. Our story begins in the hot sands of Tatooine, as Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and the young boy Anakin Skywalker are running to the Naboo ship. Qui-Gon has finally managed to help Anakin be free, and he intended to train the boy as his next Jedi apprentice. And as they ran, Qui-Gon sensed something, then heard a distant speeder in the background, so he turned, yelling at Anakin to drop, and before he knew it, Qui-Gon had to ignite his lightsaber as this man leapt from the speeder and ignited a red blade. Qui-Gon told Anakin to get to the ship and have it take off, fly low. So while Anakin ran, Qui-Gon focused fully on this adversary. Darth Maul was dressed in his swaying black robe, and he moved like a warrior trained in the Jedi arts, but he fought with anger and emotion. Qui-Gon was being backed up, but he blocked every strike. Maul swung at Qui-Gon's side, and Qui-Gon pushed the blade away, as Maul then flipped over the Jedi Master, swinging at his head, and Qui-Gon blocked another strike from behind him now. The Naboo ship began flying by, so Qui-Gon jumped up to the ramp, but Maul wasn't done yet. He leapt after Qui-Gon, and after a few strikes in mid-air, Maul tackled Qui-Gon back to the sand. Both of them rolled around in the sand upon their landing, but as Qui-Gon got back up to ignite his saber, Maul cut right through it, and kicked Qui-Gon to the ground. Qui-Gon scrambled backwards, and Maul ignited the second side of his blade. Qui-Gon took a quick glance behind Maul to see the Naboo ship. Obi-Wan stood on the ledge, and he threw his lightsaber into the air. And Maul spun in for the kill, allowing Qui-Gon to roll under the swinging blades and catch Obi-Wan's saber. Maul missed his strikes, underestimating Qui-Gon's agility, and Qui-Gon ignited the blue saber across Maul's midsection, slicing him in half. And Maul would not survive this time. Breathing heavily, Qui-Gon would wait for the ship to land as he would speak to Obi-Wan, explaining what happened here. If Qui-Gon had it his way, he wouldn't have had to kill this man, but Anakin and the Queen were next in line if he fell, so he did what had to be done. Qui-Gon would use the Force to bury Maul deep in the sands, then pick up his red lightsaber, and they took off back for the temple. On the flight back, Obi-Wan would be alone with Qui-Gon as they discussed what that could have been, and Qui-Gon said it plainly: the Sith have returned from hiding. And now we move forward to the Jedi Council chambers, as Qui-Gon ignites the red blade for everyone to see. The red glow reflected off the windows, and all 12 council members were extremely focused on what this could mean. But to Qui-Gon, the answer was extremely simple: this was a Sith. Master Windu leaned forward, then said this would not be the first dark side acolyte to emerge in the last handful of years. How can they be sure this is the actual return of the Sith, and not just another fallen Jedi or Force wielder trying to defeat them? Qui-Gon said he was trained in the Jedi arts, and if it weren't for Obi-Wan, he would have been defeated. He said he got lucky, but the Order must now prepare so they don't have to rely on luck against future Sith rising up, or Sith that may already be around. Yoda said they must indeed remain careful, but perhaps this man was working alone. He told Qui-Gon the Order cannot live in fear of a threat they may have already been taken care of. Then, he and Obi-Wan were dismissed, but this time, Qui-Gon did not wait around to tell the Council about Anakin. Something had changed during this conversation today. Qui-Gon, after nearly dying and having to kill this man on Tatooine, was warning the Council of a real threat to this galaxy. Qui-Gon knew Dooku has been warning the Council of a coming darkness, and the Council has continuously ignored him. So, Qui-Gon considered a new path. Anakin will be a Jedi, but he will not be trained by this ignorant Council here on Coruscant that rarely leaves their ivory tower. Qui-Gon would go on and choose to meditate on this next path that he would be going on, as events unfolded around the galaxy. Palpatine would call for a vote of no confidence in Valorum for his handling of the crisis on Naboo, and as voting for the next Chancellor began, Palpatine would learn of Maul's fate on Tatooine, as he has disappeared. Palpatine was angry, but he knew that Dooku was next in line, so his plans were not altered. He had no choice but to move on, and soon he would kill Darth Plagueis and be elected as the next Supreme Chancellor. The Queen of Naboo would choose to go back to the planet, but when the Council called Qui-Gon back in to have him escort the Queen to Naboo, Qui-Gon informed the Jedi that he is leaving the Order, so he may not be the best choice for this mission. Qui-Gon didn't really need to explain himself. This was brewing for a long while, and although Qui-Gon would never turn to the dark side, This version of the Jedi was not for him. So, the Council instead would send Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Depa Billaba to escort the Queen. This was also now a test for Kenobi to see if he was worthy of becoming a Jedi Knight. And Qui-Gon would have one final chat with Yoda, telling the Grandmaster that he intends to remain a Jedi, but in a new order. Yoda had no choice but to accept this, and he asked Qui-Gon where he will be going. Qui-Gon smiled and said he has made many friends over the years, but he trusts that Kashyyyk will be best for them. 3 years later, Anakin Skywalker was swinging his training lightsaber around as he leapt through the giant Kashyyyk trees. He deflected a series of bowcaster shots from Chewbacca, then landed behind the Wookiee as Chewie growled in frustration. Anakin was getting really good at this, and Anakin told Chewie that he has to go, as Qui-Gon was calling for him. It was time for supper with the newly built Jedi Order. 3 years ago, Qui-Gon Jinn had stood on the beaches of Kashyyyk, watching the tide roll in as he contemplated the future. Here he would plant the seeds of something new, something free from the Jedi of the old. The Wookiees, the proud warriors of Kashyyyk, were somewhat wary of this new order at first. Their history with outsiders had been fraught with betrayal and exploitation, particularly at the hands of the Trandoshans, who raided their lands for sport. Qui-Gon would offer them an alliance. The Jedi would fight alongside them against these hunters in exchange for a section of the forest to build their new Jedi home. The chieftains debated, but saw the sincerity in the Jedi Master, and this wasn't the first time Qui-Gon had been to Kashyyyk. The Wookiees trusted him, and so the pact was sealed in battle after Qui-Gon fought beside the Wookiees against a Trandoshan raiding party. The Wookiees would emerge victorious, cementing the Jedi's place among them, and the first year on Kashyyyk was one of building, learning, and Qui-Gon and Anakin would live among the Wookiees, adapting to their ways rather than imposing their own. High up in the trees, the first Jedi refuge would take shape. It was a sprawling network of platforms, and the Wookiees themselves would help build them up. Meditation chambers, homes were all suspended in the branches, and Anakin would find peace next to the ocean waves and in the vast forests here. His connection to the Force deepened in ways that the structured temple may not have allowed. He moved through the jungle with instinct, learning from the Wookiee warriors how to track, hunt, and fight with more than just his lightsaber. And by the second year, others had come along. Jedi disillusioned with the Republic, those who felt the Order lost its way, or just Jedi wanting a fresh start. They would arrive in small numbers at first, and among them was Quinlan Vos, drawn to the untamed world and Qui-Gon's new vision. His skills in psychometry proved invaluable in reading the scars of Kashyyyk, warning of Trandoshan movements before they struck, or being able to track them down. Aayla Secura would also follow soon after, and together, the 3 Jedi Masters trained a growing number of younglings and apprentices, allowing them to grow naturally with the Force, rather than forcing them into rigid roles. The Jedi on Coruscant were not taking in Padawans past the age of 5, allowing some of them to end up here instead, just like Anakin. But it would not be forever that the Trandoshans went into hiding and gave up on hunting the Wookiees. In the 3rd year here, the hunting would grow bolder, attacking Wookiee villages closer to the Jedi Sanctuary, and one evening, as Quinlan, Aayla, and Qui-Gon led a force of Wookiees against the Trandoshan stronghold, a single hunter would slip through the shadows, reaching the heart of the hidden Jedi camp. With the Masters away, only the younglings and Anakin remained to guard their home. The Trandoshan, a towering brute covered in dark scales, crept towards Anakin's hut, vibroblade in hand. Anakin had his eyes closed, hands trembling, ready to fight. But before Skywalker could move, a deafening roar split through the night. Chewbacca crashed through the branches, tackling the Trandoshan to the ground. A brutal struggle ensued, but the Wookiee's raw strength won out. The hunter was cast from the treetops, body vanishing into the darkness below, and from that night on, Anakin and Chewbacca would form a very friendly bond, as Chewie was like a friendly mentor for Anakin outside of the Jedi. Anakin's growth in these 3 years was remarkable. Under Qui-Gon's guidance, he was a force of nature in these Kashyyyk trees. His instincts were sharpening, abilities flourished, and most importantly, he would find inner peace. With more young Jedi arriving, Anakin became a leader among them, training alongside them with Qui-Gon leading the way. And out in the galaxy, as this new order rose up on Kashyyyk, the Sith indeed had returned just as Qui-Gon proclaimed. Despite the death of Darth Maul and the loss at Naboo, Palpatine was the Chancellor of the Republic, and his apprentice, Darth Tyrannus, otherwise known as Count Dooku, was in the perfect position to create a galactic conflict. And Dooku, who was in close contact with Qui Gon, posing as a true friend, would learn of Anakin Skywalker, the supposed chosen one freed from slavery. This was good, and the boy would be a part of the Sith plans in due time. But over the next 6 years, the Jedi Order on Kashyyyk continued to flourish, growing from a small enclave into a thriving sanctuary for Force sensitives seeking a new path. More Jedi trickled in from across the galaxy, drawn by Qui-Gon's vision of an order unshackled from the Republic. Among them were Jedi Masters like Plo Koon, whose deep sense of justice led him to abandon Coruscant, and Shakti, who felt the Jedi had simply become too rigid. The Order's structures expanded both in the towering trees and alongside the coast of the oceans. Vast wooden platforms now sprawled across the jungle, connected by rope bridges and vine-covered walkways. Meditation chambers hung from massive branches, woven into the trees, and below, along the beaches, were stone structures where there was housing and training areas for the young Jedi to spar against each other and alongside Wookiee warriors if they so choose. Jedi Masters would teach freely, and students all learned at their own pace, each finding their own connection to the Force. Qui-Gon and Anakin's bond deepened with time. The boy who'd once been headstrong and impatient indeed found patience under Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon didn't exactly demand obedience, but instead encouraged Anakin to seek his own path, listen to the Force, rather than fear his emotions. This was the father figure he'd always longed for, and during the 4th year, Qui-Gon and Anakin would embark on a journey to Tatooine. The Jedi of Kashyyyk stayed hidden mostly from galactic affairs, but this one was personal. Anakin could never forget his mother, and Qui-Gon knew his training could never be complete while that pain remained. Together, they tracked down Shmi Skywalker to the homestead of Cliegg Lars. Freed from slavery, Shmi had found a quiet life, but when Anakin appeared at her doorstep, joyful emotions flooded through both of them. Shmi chose to occasionally visit them on Kashyyyk from here on out, sometimes tending to the younglings and ensuring the home they were building remained a place of warmth and love for the children. And Anakin would occasionally return to Tatooine to share a day with her and the family. This would scare the Tusken Raiders away from getting too close to them, as they feared a rivalry with the Jedi. Things were going well in Anakin's life, and meanwhile Anakin's friendship with Chewbacca had also grown, and although they couldn't always understand each other, they got along quite well. But as the years passed, and Anakin grew into a true Jedi, wielding his blue saber better than anyone else on this planet, darkness began to creep into Anakin's dreams, as the galaxy was threatened by war. At first, the dreams were vague. There were just shadows shifting in the distance, whispers calling his name, but by the 8th year on Kashyyyk, they became visions. He saw a figure, cloaked in black, standing at the edge of the jungle, calling for him, waiting for him. Anakin heard a voice, familiar but distant, urging him to seek power beyond what these Jedi could offer. The visions came with an unsettling pull, a feeling in his chest that he just could not shake. And soon, Anakin would have dreams of himself running through the forest, trying to save the Jedi as it burned down, only to come upon the Coruscant Jedi Council, who destroyed everything in order to stop this new order from growing. Anakin confided in Qui-Gon about this, but Anakin did not tell his master everything. He was afraid that Qui-Gon would see him differently, and by the end of this 9th year, Anakin was at a crossroads. He'd grown into a wonderful Jedi, wise beyond his years, with a connection to the Force that few could rival. But the peace he'd found on Kashyyyk was beginning to feel like a cage. The dark presence in his visions was waiting for him to answer, and it was on Kashyyyk. So one night, Anakin would respond to the call, following the dark presence from his dreams out into the real world. It was here. Anakin could feel it. So, late in the Kashyyyk forests, Anakin would soon find himself at a cave underneath a huge waterfall. But he was not alone. Chewbacca was on a late-night scouting mission when he spotted Anakin by this waterfall, and Chewie could tell something was up, so he went and told Qui-Gon about this. And inside of the cave, Anakin would soon enter and find the hooded Darth Sidious waiting for him. Sidious smiled, asking Anakin if he has felt it, the chains binding him here, keeping him from unlocking his true power. His voice was low, almost gentle, blending with the waterfall, and it seeped into Anakin's mind like a poison. Anakin's first instinct was to ignite his lightsaber, but he hesitated, and Sidious simply raised a hand as the cave around them shifted. This cave was one with the Force, the walls rippled, and suddenly Anakin was no longer in the cave. He stood in the sands of Tatooine. This was a vision, and ahead of him, the twin suns blazed in the sky, and at his feet lay a broken figure. His mother, Shmi Skywalker, bloodied, weakened, reaching for him, begging for help. Anakin's breath caught in his throat. He knelt down to her, but she crumbled into dust. The wind howled, the sand shifted, and new shapes were formed. He now stood in the halls of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Jedi Masters he'd never met whispered in low voices, expressions cold and dismissive. Anakin then turned, seeing familiar faces. He saw Qui Gon among them, face lined with disappointment, and Windu whispered that it is done. Shmi Skywalker has been taken care of, and Anakin is next. The image then changed again. Kashyyyk burned, Wookiees dead in the trees, their great city in ruins. Jedi bodies were scattered in the sand, and in the midst of it all stood Anakin, alone, lightsaber clutched in his trembling hand. Sidious stepped back into view, telling Anakin he is seeing the future. The Coruscant Jedi must reclaim their monopoly on the Force. War will break out, and he is not strong enough to stop it. Anakin turned, his breathing ragged, and he said it's not true. Qui-Gon will, but Sidious cut him off, sharply saying that Qui-Gon is a fool, believing in peace, while war is inevitable for this galaxy because of the Jedi. The vision faded, and the cave returned, but the fear did not go away. Sidious took a step closer, his voice a whisper now. He told Anakin that his mother is going to die, unless he chooses to embrace his true power. Meditating in the trees brings him nowhere close to where he can be. Anakin clenched his fists, his mind raced. Was this a lie, a trick? But deep down, he knew what Sidious said was not entirely false. He'd seen visions of destruction before. He'd felt the Jedi's hesitation, their fear of what he could become. He'd felt his own power growing beyond what Qui-Gon could teach him. But outside of the waterfall, Qui-Gon was now sprinting along the coast, going to Anakin, trying to find him, until a red blade ignited in front of Qui-Gon. Dooku emerged from the sands, and he told his former Padawan to turn around, get out of here while he still can. Let Anakin make his own choice, as he has. Qui-Gon ignited his green blade, telling Dooku that the dark side is not a choice. It is an empty promise that brings only pain and suffering. Dooku held his blade forward, telling Qui-Gon he can join him. Together, they can bring Anakin to their side, take down the Sith and the Jedi, make the galaxy the way they want it to be. But Qui-Gon now held his saber at his side, getting ready for a duel, telling Dooku he will do what he must and go save Anakin from darkness. Qui-Gon's green blade would meet Dooku's with a new flash of energy, the force of their clash sending ripples through the water. Dooku's strikes were elegant, methodical, each one meant to corner, not to kill yet. Qui-Gon countered with his own finesse, weaving through the sand, using the shifting terrain to his own advantage. Qui-Gon knew most of Dooku's moves, from their many years training and sparring together, but the former Jedi was relentless with his new dark side abilities. A sweep of Dooku's hand sent a wave of water crashing against Qui-Gon's legs, throwing him off balance. A second later, blue lightning arced through the mist, barely missing Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon ran back in, and the ocean roared behind him, the waterfall's relentless spray clouding his vision as they dueled closer to the waterfall. Qui-Gon blocked a strike aimed for his neck, but Dooku kicked him into the water, and Dooku now loomed over him, victory at hand, his blade raised high, as Dooku knew he must end this. But then, a horn rang out, and from the jungle, Chewbacca and the Wookiee warriors charged forward, bowcasters firing. Blaster bolts slammed into the sand, forcing Dooku to retreat, and Qui-Gon sent Dooku crashing out into the water, and a final bolt from a Wookiee bowcaster struck the water where he fell. Dooku was gone and swept away by the relentless ocean. The Wookiees roared in triumph, their victory echoing across the stormy shore, and Qui-Gon looked into the forest to see lightsabers igniting all around, rallying behind him. And behind the waterfall, in the cave, Darth Sidious listened as the Wookiees and Jedi rallied together, and Anakin stood back up, freeing himself from the influence of the dark side. He would choose Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon's teachings helped Anakin to see the truth in this very moment. Sidious angrily turned to face Anakin, but Anakin reached out with both hands, pushing Sidious hard out of the cave and through the waterfall. The Dark Lord landed in the water, and in seconds was surrounded by a dozen Jedi lightsabers, and many more Wookiees aiming right at him. The people of Kashyyyk, both Jedi and Wookiee, were defending Anakin Skywalker. Sidious would be hit with enough stun blasts to keep him knocked out for a long, long time. Qui-Gon Jinn and Anakin Skywalker would personally deliver the captured Sith, now revealed to be Chancellor Palpatine, back to the Coruscant Temple. Qui-Gon would spend the trip telling Anakin how proud he was to have him as a student, and Anakin said that without Qui-Gon's teachings, the dark side influence may have taken over him. The two of them worked well together, and they would speak to the Coruscant Jedi about where things will go from here. The entire Jedi Order, both on Kashyyyk and Coruscant, would see the error of ignoring the galaxy and letting corruption spread from the Sith. So, both Jedi Orders would commit to going back out into the wider galaxy, as the Republic would elect the youngest ever Chancellor, Padme Amidala, for a fresh start, as she inspired the galaxy to change for the better. She and Anakin would maintain a professional relationship, as Padme would work with the Jedi to help spread them out into the galaxy while working with planets on negotiations to bring in the Jedi. As the years went on, the two Jedi Orders would work well alongside Chancellor Amidala, and Anakin Skywalker would become a hero to those in need across the galaxy, soon also reuniting with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Palpatine was in custody for life, and as the galaxy settled in, Qui-Gon would become a guide for Jedi until his time came, and he would pass along the role of Grand Master to Anakin. And folks, that is our story for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you don't mind, real quick, go down to the pinned comment where I've got a question for all of you just about YouTube itself, so thanks for that. But yeah, this story was one I enjoyed. The topic, I always search for like topics to keep Qui-Gon alive and train Anakin, just because I think those alternate universes are fun. Qui-Gon's a really interesting character, so yeah, wanted to search for something to do that. Thought, hey, what if they fought on Tatooine? Now, I could have done more maybe with the aftermath of the events on Naboo and Tatooine with Sidious or Maul, or just, I don't know. But I don't think much would change, as in like the Battle of Naboo if Maul died earlier. I just think the Trade Federation would lose easier. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the rest of the video with Kashyyyk. I always love featuring the Wookiees. They're a lot of fun, so appreciate you guys listening. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next video.